Galatians chapter 5 contains some of the most famous verses in the Bible. It's that section on the fruit of the Spirit. But before we get there, I first want you to understand this. That sentence is not a string of commands. Be more loving, be more joyful, be more peaceful, for goodness sake. No, it is not a demand made upon us, but a description given to us of what life looks like when we are in healthy relationship with Jesus. Think of those words from John 15, Jesus saying, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. And apart from me, you can do nothing. That is the perfect foundation for this passage. That just as the fruit is the natural end result of a well-planted, well-nurtured, well-watered fruit tree, so our lives will bear much fruit, Jesus says, if they are governed by a healthy relationship with Him. And so it is that relationship that the book of Galatians has really been all about. Time for a quick story. There were once 3 dogs. The first dog lived his life on a leash, and that leash was wrapped around a fence post in the back garden. And with clockwork regularity, the owner of the dog would come out and bring it food and water so that it could survive. Occasionally, other dogs would come and visit the back garden and would tell him of all the wonderful possibilities of a life lived off the leash. There's a big, wide world out there to explore and enjoy, they would say, although to our ears it would sound like woof, woof, woof. But our dog didn't much like the sound of that. He was pretty glad, actually. As long as the leash would hold him to that patch of ground, he would be safe. He called what he had freedom. This leash keeps me free, thought the dog. Free from all sorts of pain and sorrow and unnecessary suffering. Now, you and I know that this is a horrible existence for a dog. But the dog didn't know any better. He called what he had freedom. The second dog was almost the opposite. No leash, no law, no rules regulating his behavior. He was as free as could be. Or at least he had what most people think of when they think of freedom. Of course, it ultimately meant that he roamed the streets. He was carried along by his own appetites into all kinds of chaos and catastrophe. His personality was unchecked, undisciplined, untrained. No one could tell him what to do. He was free, he said. Of course, he became a literal wild dog, endlessly getting into scraps and fights with other dogs, foraging for foods in bins, living life without any peace or rest at all. And yet, of course, he called what he had freedom. The third dog had a good and loving master. And that made all the difference in the world. The master loved him and looked after him. That third dog didn't get to do everything that it always wanted to do, but often, with hindsight, it realized that actually that was a good thing after all. Its little doggy perspective on the world was actually not as informed or as insightful as the perspective of his master. And over time, the third dog came to entrust his plans into the hands of his good master. He would think to himself, you know what? I'm not really all that fussed about where we go or what we do today. I just want to hang around with you. And so, at the master's side, he felt no fear. He had plenty of joy. He was able to explore and enjoy more of the world than he ever would have done on his own. And even when the dog was not on a leash, there was an internal bond, built not at its foundation on rules, but on healthy relationship. I'm sure you know where this is going. There are 3 types of people in the world. There are the religious types. They stick to the rules very closely, and they think that in doing so, they are somehow superior. Of course, at the other extreme, there are the rebellious types. Those who say, who are you, God? And what right do you have to tell me what to do with my own life? And with all of their horribly limited insight, though they can't see that, of course, they follow simply every whim and desire that pulls at their heart, every passion that pulls at their ego. They call what they have freedom, but in truth, it is folly. True biblical Christian freedom is found not in religion or in rebellion, but in glad, healthy relationship with Jesus. As Paul says in Galatians 5, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. You can be enslaved either to the rules or your own reckless passions. Instead, stand firm in the relationship you have with Christ. And if you do that, remaining in him as he remains in you, you will bear much fruit. It is inevitable. What exactly do we mean when we talk about being fruitful as a Christian? Well, here's what we mean. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And if we bear that kind of fruit, we will go on to bless others, and we will bring great glory to the one who gave us the gift of spiritual life and causes us to bear such fruit in the first place. The point of this passage then is not to beat yourself up about your apparent lack of fruitfulness, but to simply encourage you along the path of righteousness. Friend, stick close to Jesus and just watch what he will do in your life.